Good morning, Year 5s. It's the 1st of July, it is Wednesday, and this is the video for your reading today. Now you'll notice something that's a bit different. Well, not maybe different, but bizarre. We've got the Tide Rises and Windy Nights, so poems, two separate poems with lots of deduction, so it's all about I think this because it says this. When you look at the questions, all of them are the same. And that is because I want us to look at each verse and think what that verse might try to mean. So remember, impression means how do you feel about that verse, or what gut instincts do you get of this character? Okay, so impression is simply how do you feel about that verse and what does it make you think? So we're just going to go through each verse. Now remember, none of these answers that I say might be what you've put, but they've got to be plausible, okay? So the impression I get of the first one, the tide rises, the tide falls, the twilight darkens, the curlew calls, along the sea sand damps and brown, the traveller hastens towards the town, and the tide rises, the tides fall. The impression I get of this one is that night is falling and nature is happening, but somebody has got caught out by the tide. So the impression I get is that it's the end of the day and people need to get inside. You know, everything is coming to a rest. So the birds are going, twilight is so the darkness is arriving. The people need to get back into town, but the tide is still going. So everything is kind of coming to an end, but the tide is still going. Next one. Darkness settles on roof and walls, but the sea in the darkness calls. The little waves with their soft white hands efface the footprints in the sands, and the tide rises, the tide falls. So again, the impression I get from this is that darkness has settled across everywhere. Nothing is happening, but the sea is very busy. The sea is getting rid of the day. Okay, so under this blanket of darkness, when nothing is happening from anything, the sea is getting rid of the day. It's effacing footprints, but it's with hands. It's almost like it's cleaning away the day. So that's the impression I get of that one. And then the last verse, the morning breaks, the steeds in their stalls stamp and neigh as the ostler calls. The day returns, but never more. Returns the traveller to the shore, and the tide rises, the tide falls. So the impression I get of that one is everything is woken up again. So that, you know, all those animals, nature, the people, everything's awake again, everything's ready for the next day. And the tide is still going. So it's worked hard all night, cleaning, freshening up for the next day, and everything is back to life. The Windy Nights one. Whenever the moon and stars are set, whenever the wind is high, all night long in the dark and wet, a man goes riding by. Late in the night when the fires are out, why does he gallop and gallop about? So the impression I get of that one is that there's a mystery man who nobody knows kind of what he's doing because of the question at the end, why does he gallop about? So we've got a windy night, it's dark and wet, nobody should be out, but there's a man riding. So the impression I get there is that this verse gives me a sense of mystery. It makes me feel like something bad is happening, but there is a man riding round and we don't know why. So that's the impression I get of that one. Impression, remember, it just means what do you understand of that character, or how do you feel about the character, or how does this verse make you think or feel or picture? Whenever the trees are crying aloud and ships are tossed at sea, by on the highway low and loud, by at the gallop goes he, by at the gallop he goes, and then by he comes back at the gallop again. So the impression I get here is that, again, we've still got this storm, we've still got this place where you shouldn't be outside right now. There's this dark image, this dark scene, but this guy, this highway person, is just riding through the storm. So they're the impressions I get. It's a tricky one, and this would have been a really good one to do in class, talking about our impressions. If you can at least just explain what you think the verse is telling you, or what it's picturing, then you've got it. Okay, guys, but remember, you can have, like, what I've said doesn't have to be your impression, but they're probably they're probably going to be similar. Okay, so well done with that.